This is Adam Meister, the Bitcoin Meister, the Disrupt Meister. Welcome to This Week in Bitcoin and Beyond. Oh yeah, we're changing it up here, okay? Today is July the 27th of 2023. Strong hand, long-term thinking. Bitcoin is the next Bitcoin. Bitcoin always returns to its all-time high. This is where the big boys play, all right? I'm offended by selling. Let's just get right into this. We're going to retweet this, everybody, all right? Pound the like button. Spread the word. Chris Black has returned to the house, all right? And the great Ulrich is here making his debut. So is Big Sean Harris. We're going to start off by talking about the biggest news of the week so far is this Worldcoin thing that's going on, okay? Scan your iris, get free altcoins, be tracked for the rest of your life. The normies think it's cool. It's cool in Japan, apparently. I don't know. You're going to become an AI bot. Sam Altman, Chris Black, what is this about?
What is this about? This is about people not seeing past the end of their nose when it comes to what they're willing to do with their day, right? So like thousands of people allegedly lined up to get their iris scanned, to be put into a database, to be done who knows what with, in exchange for a few dollars worth of a total garbage coin. I think it came out to like $40 or something like that. And they don't give any thought to why maybe they shouldn't be doing this. You know, it's just about like, oh, cool. This is a fun thing to do. I can get a free $30-$40. Let's go and scan my iris. You know, but I think that the biggest problem here is people don't have the capacity, the ability. They weren't taught how to think rationally about something like this. You know, think about what might be the bad side of this. Why might I not want to do this? And really, this is, to me at this point, I'm less concerned about what Worldcoin is ultimately going to do versus the grooming that's basically occurring. The grooming, the idea that, oh, just scan your whatever, and here's $25. Next is going to be like a Big Mac for, you know, your 10 fingerprints, or, you know, scan your butt, whatever else they're going to use to identify you. And people are just being groomed to think that this is perfectly fine. Next thing you know, we're going to be in dystopian hell of a future, and they're going to be like, "How did we get here?"
That was the groomer term is correct for this. It really puts it all in perspective. And that already people are comfortable. It's so personal. It's your iris scan. Sir Ulrich, what do you think?
I mean, you know, if there's one thing I've learned in the Bitcoin space is that we all are kind of we're researchers, and we kind of we dig into things. We get into rabbit holes, and I would say that the general populace has a short shovel for digging into things. Not only do people have a lack of patience, but I think that generally speaking, they have a lack of curiosity. And an uninterested population, you know, it's difficult to comprehend and accept the things that are happening in real time, whether it's Bitcoin coming into the world or you know, things that try to steal your identity like Worldcoin. So, you know, I think that we in the first world have it the worst because we have we're so privileged. We're under the protection of the dollar to a degree, even though it hurts us. It hurts, you know, other nations, third world countries, multiple times more. So I would say that, you know, Worldcoin is just another example of how the mainstream normie population is numb to economics. They're desperate, and they can be cultivated to be farmed by grifter after grifter after grifter. It happens time and time again. And, you know, I mean, I didn't know how much they were offering, $45. That's I thought it was even less. So, you know, it's remarkable how easy it is for people to sell their freedom, their privacy, things that aren't replaceable, things that aren't replicable. But again, when we live in a fiat world, we just think that essentially everything grows on trees like money does for them.
Well, it's another sign of the mainstream media narrative that the 80%ers out there, 80% of people, they don't think anymore. And that's going to be a reoccurring theme throughout this show with this beautiful new panel. By the way, this week in Bitcoin, Beyond Bitcoin, whatever this combo is, we're going to try to do this again. People in the chat, you're saying all sorts of things. Tell me what day is best for you for this show. It's not necessarily going to be on Thursdays or Fridays or whatever. And we're going to have some reoccurring members of the panel. It's going to be a little bit different. Now, a big Sean Harris, welcome to the show. And I mean, what's your take on this? I want to add that, I try to paint a positive spin on all this, that maybe some of these people, these normies, they'll get this, they'll realize eventually that they're totally tracked in cattle, and then that will wake them up to Bitcoin. I don't know. I'm trying to put a good spin on this, but I mean, these dudes are volunteering so much of their personal information to Sam Altman, who's got like a mad AI project going on, and we'll talk about that later. But Sean, what's your take?
Well, first of all, BitcoinMeister, thanks for having me on. And yeah, I think it's really interesting, right? When you're looking at this Worldcoin that's going on and how people are just lining up to offer over sensitive information, it just shows the fiat world, right? I think that is fiat just builds on itself like a snowball, the same way that Bitcoin does. And until you really feel that pain, until you get rug pulled, like what you're saying, then you don't realize the need for sound money. And that's what's going on is, I mean, and you see it in more than just people lining up to scan their irises. I mean, how many OnlyFans girls are there out there? How many other things are going on where people just give up sacred parts of themselves for a little bit of cash, and they don't think about the long-term repercussions. And I think people should be free to do whatever they want to do. But I think a lot of people just don't think about what the long-term effects are of those actions for just a little bit of money. And that's what Bitcoin's bringing back the thoughts of, hey, maybe not even just bringing back that low time preference, but just the low time preference thinking too. What are the effects of my actions? And I think that's something that we're going to start seeing as more and more people get rug pulled from all types of fiat, including Worldcoin.
Yeah, long-term thinking is gone from this world. I mean, you can be the richest millionaire in the world. Your son gets a shot and then he has a heart attack. You didn't. Why didn't you think about it? I mean, you went with the flow and everything. It is horrifying. And we'll talk about that. But there is no long-term thinking. Everything is impulsive, living in the moment. And that's the simple awesomeness of Bitcoin is you don't have to be a genius. You just have to have patience. I mean, again, 210,000 block theory. In 210,000 blocks, Bitcoin is going to be worth more. That has been the trend all along for you fiat freaks that value it in fiat. But most people can't wait 4 years for anything. They got to sell it right away. I mean, it's unbelievable. But again, Worldcoin is marketing itself as almost like a passport, an easy I can see how some people could be tempted into it. Oh, I get this cool world digital passport. Well, I mean, this information that they're gathering, who knows who will have access to it eventually. So it is a freak show going down, but it is an example.
Can I say one more thing too?
Please.
It's like their whole idea is you get verified, right?
Yeah.
So as you scan your eyes, you get verified, and everyone wants the blue check, but they don't realize what comes with the blue check. And so it's kind of funny to see, oh, if I get verified, then I'm cool all of a sudden. But why does Sam Altman need to verify me? Why does Twitter or Instagram or anyone else need to verify me? How come I can't just be good enough as I am? And how come I'm not a person and verified as a human being without having to scan my iris? And I think that's something too, that everyone's just searching for identity and they don't have the confidence within themselves to just be okay with being a human, And I think that's what we're seeing too, is they want verification.
Well,
Hey, Sean, real quick, and because a lot of the feedback from what you just said is that we see how easy it is to monetize humanity, and what it really boils down to is people have now cheapened themselves to $45. I'm no longer important. I'm no longer unique, and so therefore it's almost like humanity is debased, and we see the value of a human right now with this Worldcoin. It's reprehensible.
Well, it's again, my philosophy is be a confident decentralist, be a unique beast. Most people need a centralized verification of some sort because they don't understand that fitting in is overrated. They all want to be part of, most people, the 80%ers want to be part of some approved blob of some sort. It is a reoccurring thing, and they don't care about privacy. If the centralized authority says, don't worry about privacy, they don't care about privacy. It's whatever the trendies say. This is it's an amazing example. It really is an amazing example of what a lot of us have been yelling about for a while. So before we move on to RFK, Chris Black, anything else to add?
Yeah, just on that note, I think we're all a little guilty of this whole trend, because every time we click on one of those captchas, or every time we try to sort out the puzzle so that we can log into something, we all do it. And it's the same thing. You're having to prove to an artificial intelligence that you are a human. That's what we're doing. We're proving to a computer that we're human. And once the computers get smarter, they're going to be able to mess with that idea more and more and more. And so the whole pitch of Worldcoin is, well, okay, you won't have to do a CAPTCHA anymore because you can scan your iris and prove that you're this human, and an artificial intelligence can't do that. So we're kind of already bought into this system. So the real question to me is, how do we escape that cycle? How do we get out of, because it's only going to get worse. We all know that. Worse as AI gets smarter and fakes being a human and stuff like that. How do we get out of that whole cycle? How do we have to just break technology? Do we have to go full Ted Kaczynski and just completely wreck it? Or how else can we break out of that? Because that's the real problem. That's almost like a never-ending situation for us as humans, competing with AIs to prove that we're human.
Yeah, I mean, this is we're entering a real an interesting realm right here. Really wild stuff, and we're gonna talk specifically about the threat of AI, or if it's overblown, if it's a cult worrying about it. I don't know in 1 second. So let's move on to the next subject here. RFK Jr. He cares a lot about privacy, or he says he does. He doesn't want the security state getting up in regular Americans' business. And that is part of the reason that he likes Bitcoin. And now he has purchased 14 Bitcoin, by the way. Pound that like button for using that Kennedy money in a good way there, I'd say. So a lot of people think he's orange washing his campaign. I mean, I think he's quite sincere about letting not tracking Americans, not having a central bank digital currency, letting Americans choose between Bitcoin and the fiat dollar. But his big announcement, one thing that people really liked, is that he said if he became the president, he would use a little bit of Bitcoin to back the dollar, I guess, in the treasury. But what got me excited was that he would say there'd be no capital gains taxes on Bitcoin. If you eventually sold your Bitcoin and again, if you spend your Bitcoin on a car or whatever, you got to pay capital gains on it right now. All sorts of stuff. He would make it, and he even had to explain that he says, even though this will benefit early adopters of Bitcoin and wealthier people, it's the right thing to do. He had to give it a little bit of I mean, right then and there, like this, I'm still registered as a Democrat. And so, I'm definitely voting for him in the primary. Obviously, it's in my best financial self-interest, to say the very least, because all of you know, I've never sold a Bitcoin for fiat, partially because mostly because I believe in Bitcoin and everything. But I have thought that there was always a chance that the tax system would become friendlier. And literally, this could save people millions and millions of dollars. So I guess we'll start Ulrich on here. What are your thoughts on Californian Robert F. Kennedy? He's down in Southern California. I met you in Southern California back at the November. What was that?
Pacific Bitcoin Swans.
Swans. I wonder if
event,
RFK will make an appearance there in October. Who knows? Get on the. Get it on over there, you guys. Corey and everybody, invite him. But no, so Ehrlich, take it away with Robert.
Yeah, I mean, in my opinion, I don't think that he'll get nominated by the Democratic Party. I mean, I'm a history buff. I can't remember the last time an incumbent didn't win his primaries. But I do notice a trend. Orange washing. I do believe that he has found a very supportive voting bloc in Bitcoiners, and Bitcoin Magazine finds their value in promoting politicians essentially as the answer to world problems, Bitcoin and politics, as opposed to just Bitcoin. But in the past, they were run by Eric Adams. Eric Adams said he was a pro Bitcoiner, and blah blah blah. 2 weeks later, he was like, "What's a Bitcoin?" Erika Holmes was going on Spaces promoting universal base income, and liked Bitcoin because she received campaign funds through the Lightning Network, and that's all she could say about Bitcoin. And now they're doubling down on RFK Jr., who, by the way, says more pro Bitcoin stuff than either of those two combined and anyone else I can remember. Loomis obviously is a real Bitcoiner. That's definitely an exception. But if I were to vote, the best Bitcoin president would be one that leaves Bitcoin alone and leaves his three-letter agencies, keeps his three-letter agencies away from it too. Bitcoin doesn't care about the U.S. president. And companies with Bitcoin in their name, I think, confuse would-be adopters if they follow that perspective. So obviously, you can hear I'm kind of down on that. Again, it would be nice to see RFK and a Republican both pro-Bitcoin, but at the same time, we've seen there's precedent where, I mean, even if you look at RFK's website, he doesn't mention Bitcoin at all. So it's kind of weird.
He's been tweeting out about it, but of course, the people who are on Twitter are a lot of Bitcoiners. So, interesting points there. I will say, the Overton window has been expanded a bit here because at least you put it on the now in presidential politics. People, it's out there that maybe there's not going to be. It's an issue. No taxes on Bitcoin. That's a great issue to have out there. And he is no fan of the three-letter agencies. I'll say that about him. In terms of Republicans, Vivek spoke at the Bitcoin conference down in Miami, and he's great on Bitcoin. He really understands it also. Big Sean, your thoughts?
I'm kind of agreeing with Ulrich on this one. I've just seen a lot of politicians, whether even Mayor Suarez right down in Miami.
Oh, he's terrible.
He was like a big Bitcoiner, and then all of a sudden he's like, "Oh no, we're doing Miami coin down here."
Miami coin.
So I'm also weary of Kennedy coming in, and obviously he talks about using Bitcoin for freedom. I just think it's good that basically besides Trump and Biden, every political candidate that's running for president is pro Bitcoin now, and so that's what I like. It's kind of a decentralized approach. You could say that. Or what you're saying, the Overton window is being opened up to Bitcoin, and so I think that's what's really good in the long run. If Bitcoin isn't taxed, that just means that more places will accept it. People will be incentivized to spend it, and that will create more of a circular economy, which can help with privacy in Bitcoin because you're not, so many people buy it on a KYC exchange nowadays, and so if you're earning Bitcoin and it's just getting earned and earned. In essence, then what it does is it does create more privacy. And as people learn coin control, then we can become really private with our transactions. And I think that's the overall thing is, hey, if my Bitcoin isn't taxed when I spend it, then that makes it very attractive to people who are coming into what Bitcoin is, right? For us, it's like, dude, it doesn't matter. I have some friends out here that say, well, why does Bitcoin have any value if I can't spend it anywhere? And I just go, well, why does gold have value? When was the last time you spent gold at a grocery store? Never, ever, and you never will. But at least with Bitcoin, like the infrastructure is there to do so. It just is if you're going to get taxed or not. I think that's the biggest thing right now.
I want to add something. You bring up some points, and it made me think back to Ulrich bringing up these Suarez and the lady from Southern California who didn't know what the heck they were talking about. Our RFK Jr. has tweeted out, and he's talked about Bitcoin in terms of the Canadian trucker protest.
Yeah.
He just talked about Mercola getting his bank accounts shut down, and how he says Bitcoin is a way around that. And that is, a lot of people ask, well, what's the value of Bitcoin? And that's what you just said. What's the value of Bitcoin? I mean, and it gets around situations like that. These third parties can censor financial transactions. If they don't like you, if they don't think the Canadian government straight up shut down these people's bank accounts and stuff. The only way they could get anything was Bitcoin. And RFK Jr. likes that. Yeah. So
I will say when he talks, I don't, and maybe I'm wrong on this one. Maybe I haven't listened to him enough, but I haven't heard him. He does speak correctly in the essence of, I don't hear him say crypto all the time. I hear him saying Bitcoin. And I think that is like, it's such a small little thing, but when people are doing that, you can tell that they've done some work, or at least someone has told them the right thing.
I bet the Bitcoin Magazine guys debriefed him pretty hardcore on that one.
Yeah.
And I like the Bitcoin Magazine guys, and they have every right. I mean, it is pretty obvious what's going on here with them. I mean, they really like him. I mean, it's quite amazing. But Chris Black, you haven't said anything. Please chime in.
With regard to RFK, I think he says all the right things. I think that a lot of his beliefs align with mine. Some of them don't, but a lot of them do. But my problem with RFK is I'm not sure what he's really trying to do. Like if I wanted to run for president as a Democrat, the last thing I would do is launch a campaign against a sitting Democrat president who, is running for a second term, who, has the power of this establishment behind him that's already completely destroyed more independent-minded Democrats like Bernie Sanders and people like that, and think that I have any shot in the world of winning. So I just don't think he launched this whole thing thinking he was going to win. Maybe he's trying to secure a position with whoever does win. If it's a Republican, maybe he wants to be a vice president. Maybe he wants I heard DeSantis was offering him like a head of something. DeSantis offered him like a cabinet position or said he would consider him for it if he won. So maybe that's what he's going for. I just am not. Now the good thing about his campaign is it's making people talk, like it's getting the word out about a lot of issues. But I agree with what Ulrich said before with regard to policy. First of all, the president can't just eliminate capital gains like legally. He needs Congress to do that, right? Secondly, I don't want Bitcoin mentioned in any laws. I want laws that I think that adding laws to solve problems never works. The idea is get rid of laws, get rid of capital gains on certain classes of assets, get rid of any law that includes the word Bitcoin where it's prohibited or, stuff like that. I think that carving Bitcoin out in legislation specifically designed for it just makes it a bigger target later, because then more stuff is going to be added on. It's always the way it works. And so like with a libertarian mind looking at this, you got to understand that it's better to have like less is more when it comes to law. With that being said, I'd love to see no capital gains. I'd love to see, it not being taxed when you spend it, stuff like that. But I don't know if one single president who's probably not going to win anything is going to do that.
So are you one of the guys that thinks he should have run third party if he was going to run?
I think he'd have a way better chance. I think he'd have, at least he'd have a campaign. At least he'd get on the ballot, like to run. He's not even going to get on the ballot. And after he loses the Democratic nomination, he can't run independent.
Yeah,
so he eliminate.
Yeah,
I'm okay. Maybe I'm wrong on that, but my understanding was that once you lose a nomination, once you run for an official party nomination, you can't then turn around and run.
It depends on it depends on the dates and everything like that. You might be getting on certain states have that rule. Like if you lose one thing, you can't run as a third party. Another double dipping, it's called in Maryland, I believe. But
isn't the idea that by the time they have the primary, it's past the deadline in most states, if not all, to add yourself as an independent candidate? That was my understanding, but I could be wrong. We need separate research.
It's definitely different in every state. I think he can actually. I think that's because people keep saying, well, if Trump loses, he'll run as a third party. If he doesn't get the Republican nominee,
same problem. He can't.
No, he can't. He can't. They can. There is enough time. I believe there is enough time. If you lose your party's. It was a party really is just a private group. If you lose their nomination, you can run as a third party candidate. I mean, there's scenarios where there's like 4 different guys running here. It could be a four-way race. That would be awesome, actually. And someone did bring up, I forgot who said it here, but yeah, Trump, both front runners, these old men, Trump and Biden, both they have demonstrated they are no fans of Bitcoin. It is disgraceful. And they're clueless about it too. Trump takes this patriotic thing, like the dollar is our. I mean, it's insane.
Dollar hegemony. Yeah,
that's why people call him a fascist. For the country, you must love the dollar. God, it's so cringeworthy. But he doesn't. He's not thinking on that situation. Now another thing. People even knowing about this is a bit. RFK thinks he's going to run. He's going to contact all these people are going to be watching his podcast, and he's been on so many podcasts. So all of us here are in the Twitter digital realm, so we know so much about him. But I mean, like my mom, she's around 70, and there are a lot of women that are like 70 and over. Okay. They only know the mainstream media narrative. I don't think they even know he's running for president. And do you know how many of them vote? They have nothing better to do all day. They yenta all day about Trump. All day. I mean, these people yenta about Trump. It is never. They don't know. They don't know about that. And so when they hear, the only time they hear about RFK is he's crazy. He's crazy. And it is unbelievable. These people repeat that phrase. That's one of the things that really annoys me about the 80 percenters today. Anytime the mainstream media says someone's crazy, that's it. They're crazy. And they're crazy forever. And so they can go on as many long form podcasts as they want. And all these smart people out there are like, wait a second, this guy makes total sense. But the sound clip, impulsive worlds of mainstream media fitting in world of the day, they don't know the difference. So I think RFK he's doing what he can do, get on these podcasts and everything. But I think the only thing it's going to help him with is raising money from wealthy Bitcoiners and hopefully buying some normie advertising. I mean, that's.
So you think he has a chance?
Let's. I mean, I've seen crazier. Well, he doesn't have. I believe there's a little bit of a chance. A teeny.
You've never seen any incumbent lose primary.
No. Like I've seen, back in the day, we've seen in specific favorites have had like George W. Bush lost to. He wasn't the president at the time. I don't remember the last time a president lost like Iowa or New Hampshire. We could look that up. His only shot, I mean, his family is from Massachusetts, is winning the New Hampshire primary because Biden is making the South Carolina one the first one, but New Hampshire still might have theirs first. So there's all this, if he could get some mainstream media attention, there's some scenarios where he could get some momentum in the early primaries.
No one thought Trump would win, right? I thought that was a prank when he first came out and said he was running for president.
That is true, yeah.
So Like anything's possible if you can get enough just momentum behind you, right? And it seems like what I've been seeing is even Fox News is somewhat favorable of Kennedy. And so like you see those little things like that, he might get enough people to vote for him just because they may not like Biden or, you know, whatever it may be. I think there's a lot of possibilities, but it is a long shot, right?
I think as Bitcoiners, we should just be happy that Elizabeth Warren obviously would be the worst case scenario. that hasn't come up yet. But you know, the worst thing can happen is he gets some more attention. Bitcoin gets some more, you know, rises in the importance in terms of issues. More people learn about Bitcoin. More people, you know, buy Bitcoin, understand, you know, want to opt out of the system because so many people are comfortable with the current system, and the current system isn't going away. And that's why I want to bring up BRICS too. And it's a good segue into BRICS. Yeah. A lot of people say that that BRICS is this major threat to the dollar. And I've talked about this on my short Twitter videos. Follow me on Twitter at TechBalt, TechBalt. Follow all these guys on Twitter. They are all linked to below. But on something that I've gotten from South Africa, from people on the ground in South Africa, they can't keep the power on in South Africa. Every single day, the electricity goes off. And then some people tell me on Twitter and all over the place, all the doomers are out there, BRICS are going to overtake the dollar. Do you know what S stands for? It stands for South Africa, okay? They can't keep the electricity on. It's like that's not, you want to deal with their currency? I mean, it's down there. If you're in Namibia, yes. And in Zimbabwe, in Namibia, they like the South African rand. Yes, of course. But dudes, this is but they like the dollar everywhere. The dollar is preferable. Okay, so I think there's a lot of wishful thinking on some people's part. Some Bitcoiners think that the only way that the Bitcoins can succeed is if the dollar goes away and Bitcoin becomes the world. The dollar isn't going away. We've just talked about so many scenarios that the normies totally. We are the consumer nation. It's the welfare dollar, the consumer dollar, whatever. People love this thing. It's got a great branding. All right. The other countries in the BRICS, I mean, they're Russians. They didn't want to be there. They want to get there. India is a basket case. It's horrifying. Have you ever been to Brazil before? I mean, it is. I've been to Brazil before. It's out of control there. All right, they'd rather have the dollar down there too. Now, some of these are worse than other places, but again, South Africa is part of the BRICS. And they all backstab each other when they make these deals too. I mean, they're not trustworthy. China could. How much are they going to print of the yuan? No one knows. It's out of. You could say the same about the dollar, but it's got a history. It's Chinese totally unpredictable. So I mean that's my take on the BRICS. Who wants to chime in on the BRICS versus the dollar? Maybe some of you disagree with me.
Would you support the BRICS if it was backed by Bitcoin instead of gold?
Would I? No, I don't trust them because it's trusting them, Chris. It's and that's what you've talked about so much. Like, trust us. It's gonna be backed by Bitcoin, our fiat that we're printing up here.
I don't even. And here's the thing: is you can't really back. Like Bitcoin doesn't need. You don't need to back a fiat currency with Bitcoin. You can just use Bitcoin as the bare asset. And I think that's what we're seeing is you can't peg two currencies. That's never lasted, especially a currency that's perfectly scarce versus something that can be printed digitally forever and ever. It just doesn't, the mathematics does not add up.
One of them has to change their protocol. Either the dollar stops printing or Bitcoin starts printing. You can't do that. Like, that's why it kind of was weird with backing 1% with RFK. It's like, come on, bro.
Yeah, I do want to say with China, if China said we're gonna use Bitcoin now, I would love that. Yeah, I would say that's freaking awesome because China wouldn't be China anymore. They would lose so much. Their people would be free. It would be great. It would be awesome. They're not going to get. None of those countries I just mentioned will ever. Never say never, but in their current configuration, they are so corrupt, so power hungry. They won't let Bitcoin back be their currency or anything like that. But it's not even a question of that. I think what people are saying, they hear these news bites about how the BRICS are challenging the dollar, and they really blindly believe it. And again, so many people live in those countries, but I mean, half of them want to get the heck out of those countries if they could get out of those countries simply because of their government. So
I think there's something that is important to mention though, and sorry, Chris, if you're gonna go.
No, you go first.
I just think, the beginning of 2022, when Russia invades Ukraine, right, and then all the sanctions start from the United States to Russia, I think that was almost like the warning shot heard around the world, where people go, okay, every country realizes that the U.S. can weaponize the dollar, and that we can turn off and shut off the dollar anywhere in the world. And I think that's what the BRICS countries were recognizing. And it's basically like, hey, maybe we should form an alliance so this one country doesn't have all the control over us and can't weaponize their currency against us. But then the issue becomes, well, who do we trust, right? And so it's the whole game of, if I can't trust my enemy, but can I trust my friend? Because what if they flip on me and turn to my enemy? And I think that's why, as Bitcoiners, we realize that the economic game theory ends up in a money that is neutral, that's not controlled by anyone, that is decentralized, which is Bitcoin. So if the BRICS countries decided to do something against the dollar, it would be, hey, let's just adopt Bitcoin, right? Like that would be their solution. That is the solution to their problems. Let's adopt a money that isn't controlled by the United States and isn't controlled by any of us. And that's something that we can actually trust in, because it's trustless.
Chris, you were about to say something.
Yeah, a lot of it was what Sean said. I think that I hear what you're saying about the lack of trust that we should have in those countries. But then, you compare that to the U.S. and the way that the U.S. has handled the dollar and how it's handled affairs with Russia and other countries like that. And it's like the U.S. has caused this problem. So when you look at the U.S. dollar and you look at the way it's been manipulated and basically ruined by our government, and you compare it to BRICS, which, China, India, etc., South Africa, but they're actually trying to build a currency backed by, according to them, by a hard asset, even though you can't really trust them with what they say. But when you look at them side by side, it becomes a harder decision, I think. It's like, what's better? They're both horrible. They're both awful. So like Sean said, like Bitcoin is the right answer, at least when you're looking at those two options. Bitcoin as a neutral option is favorable, in my opinion. There are still problems with Bitcoin with regard to using it on that level, especially when it comes to the political nature of hard forks and stuff like that. I mean, there's so much that would need to be thought through before that were to happen on a national level. But I mean, we can't just act like the US dollar is really any better or requires any less trust than a BRICS dollar, whatever you call it, would.
All right. Well, now that I got Chris on here, let's move to a different subject matter. But before we do that, everybody that's watching this live, pound that like button. You can ask questions, do the super chat. We only need, I think, $68 more for me to do another one Bitcoin show soon. We raise funds for that. So type in BitcoinMeister, you got a question, or just do a super chat. We'll answer your question. We love it. All right, so let's AI. Let's talk about AI. Is it just a disaster cult? I mean, there's a lot of people in Silicon Valley that have made it their religion almost, that we must force these companies to slow down. I know we were ripping on Sam Altman for the eye scans, but I do give his company credit for being in this making progress. I'm not an enemy of these private corporations that are innovating with AI, and I don't think they should be held back at all. I don't believe that the end of the world is going to come from this stuff. I think the innovation that could come could just extend their lives immediately. And I just say balls to the wall with it, baby, and just let it rip. Let them try to do this stuff. I mean, they've got financial incentives to create this thing to be so innovative that it's the greatest thing ever, and they'll become multi-trillionaires. That's the way I look at it. But there are so many people out there. You go to the podcast, and maybe it's just clickbait stuff. Just it gets you the clicks and everything. But it's just doom and gloom. We need, Yuval Noah Harari. We need a centralized agreement from all the governments across the world to limit this because it is different this time. And I am the wise philosopher king. And all right, so Chris, like your thoughts on AI and is it a threat to humanity and what's going on?
It's a threat to liberty, as is every form of technology. And I think my nature leads me to think adversarially about this kind of stuff because the bad stuff happens more than the good stuff happens. And I think that this type of tech is very clearly going to give people that want power, it's going to give them more power to micromanage every aspect of our lives, down to once this is all linked up with like the printing of fiat currency and the whole idea of a CBDC where you don't have a bank account with a private bank, you have an account with your government and they can add, delete, freeze as they wish. They'll be able to do that within 1 millisecond of you missing your vax appointment. You won't be able to buy food that day because when you scan your iris, all of a sudden it's going to check your vax record. It's going to check back to your bank account and everything's going to be linked up. And this type of stuff is absolutely, there's absolutely no reason for it not to happen. I think that at the end of the day that humans are going to human, right? And the tech is going to be developed. And once it's out of the box, you can't put it back in the box. And they'll tease us with, it'll make you healthier. It'll extend your life. It'll do this or that. But they're not going to talk about the negative implications of it. Just like that, when the internet was forming, people were talking about bad things might happen. People might get addicted. People might, feel isolated. People might feel this or that. And now we have record suicides, and we have people that are so mentally ill that they think that they are literally in the wrong body. Like we have all of these horrible trends going on in our culture, and now, but we're so used to it. We just sit here and we're like, oh, this is fine. Let's look at the next thing. Let's go to the next thing. And it's only going to amplify and make it worse. So there's going to be more mental illness. There's going to be more tyranny. There's going to be, they're going to force you to do things you don't want to do. And it's inevitable, in my opinion.
But do you think that there should be a moratorium on the research right now? I mean, because that's a centralized authority.
I think they're all full of it. I think everybody behind that, they just want it to slow down so that they can catch up.
Yeah.
And I think that it's all nonsense. It's all driven by profit potential and power. Yeah. And they all are working on stuff. And we're already knee deep in AI. You look at what you're doing today. You came to this call because your phone went off and told you to come here. And, it's like, we can't live without it, so it's the next level is what they're working on now. And somebody wants to be the Steve Jobs of AI and have that ownership for the next 20, 30 years. Elon wants it to be him. Sam wants it to be him. And they're all going to, it's Bill Gates and Steve Jobs all over again, so that's where we're at right now with AI.
I will say this, these AI, I mean, they're going to be their own little creatures. They're going to be able to spend CBDCs and you're going to be able to pay. I mean, they're going to be able to hold Bitcoin too, which might be good. I mean, there's some interesting things that are going to be, because they're digital themselves. It's going to be very interesting how it blends into money. I mean, I'm looking forward to it, to tell you the truth. I mean, it's unavoidable, as you said, Chris. So I'm like, just bring it on. Let's just bring it on. But yeah, these other dudes like Yuval Noah Harari, I mean, they just want power over the narrative, over how it works, and for the good of democracy. What the heck is democracy? The democracy that you like, Yuval. My God. Okay, Sir Ulrich, or you chime in now.
Yeah, that's fine. I can chime in. In my opinion, I see AI as when we go back to 1900, 1902, you're building a pool, and you get 25 guys with a shovel and you start digging. And then maybe 20 years later, maybe 15 years later, you start developing tractors and bulldozers, and it essentially takes away the need for 20 people and a pick. And they were scared of that at that time. Back then, when electricity was coming around, there were all types of doom and gloom stories and narratives about how electricity would essentially ruin our lives. Now, have people died because of electricity? Yeah, you know, I think my great grandpa was electrocuted building the 110 freeway in LA. What I would say is that when you fast forward to the internet, cell phones, as we get more access to people all over the world, we do get to see the things that are bad in this world more apparently. And whereas like those suicides that Chris was mentioning, whereas people questioning their gender, that helps. The internet helped that out, yes, because people could validate their fringe rationale and look and find that one person online that says the same thing they do, and then all of a sudden they do it. So when people are killing themselves online, it's been proven that when people see that they're more likely to replicate it, and you couldn't see that if the internet wasn't around. But as we see with technology, we do know that technology is a deflationary force. And that deflationary force can enable humanity to live out in abundance. And honestly, if we tie Bitcoin, which is the technology, with other technologies and leave out the monetary debasement, which is fiat currency, what we would see is the net positive for the common man living in a more fruitful, abundant way, saving their time. And if we can save our time, maybe we could use our time to dig into the right rabbit holes a bit more. Maybe we can learn things that are edifying to the human race, to the individual. You know, go learn about your religion, go learn about art, go research, you know, science in an objective and positive way. So long story short, I think AI is one of those things in the long line of discoveries. Bitcoin came before it. We have AI. I think there are going to be bad things that come from it, but I do think it will still be net positive.
Big Sean Harris, we got a comment here from Marco Esquindoles. Thanks for the $5, dude. Pound that like button. We need privacy laws that protect us from AI and CBDC and spying. I don't. Well, the government shouldn't be doing that. All right, so Sean Harris, what's your thoughts on AI, and do we need privacy laws that protect us from AI?
I just think we need to just make sure, like we've said all along, right? Just make sure that we're not swapping out our freedoms for convenience. And I think, you know, that's, you know, is the government already spying on us? Probably. Yeah, we carry a phone with us everywhere we go. Right? So are these laws, like these laws are just going to be bigger honeypots for the government to use themselves or for their agencies that they have. So in my opinion, I think it's on ourselves personally as we discover new technologies, just to make sure that we're not throwing ourselves in there because it's convenient and then not realizing what freedoms that we're giving up along the way. And I think that's like the age-old story of humanity is, oh, things become more convenient. Oh, so we're just going to use this and not think about, well, am I giving up something that is valuable to me that I don't realize is valuable to me until it's gone? And with AI, maybe I'm the Paul Krugman here. I don't see AI yet to like that sci-fi disaster, you know, where it's learning from itself and it's continuing to learn and it's growing without a human doing input. But maybe I'm just not as versed in AI yet. And I'm sure you guys might know a little bit more about that. But I've just, you know, obviously I've tried out ChatGPT and the Midjourney and all that. Obviously there's other things that are on higher levels. It is funny though that the guy who is doing Worldcoin is also the same guy that's doing AI. So it's like, why is that guy so creepy? You know, like what's his deal?
Well, I mean, that's the point. He's going to feed all of the Worldcoin information into his AI. People don't get that. I mean, the AI is, I mean, that's what they eat. They eat information. The more, so all these companies are interested in it you give your information to Facebook, Google. So I mean, it's a vicious cycle, whatever. It is what it is. We're talking about the real news here, I want to say. So I want to talk about maybe some people out there think that the normies are getting too close to realizing that, maybe this quote unquote system that we all live under is there's some issues with it. So this week there were some hearings about UFOs, and all of a sudden, I mean, 5 years ago you would have said, "What the heck?" But now, is this just a distraction? I mean, is this a big psyop by the FBI, the CIA? I don't know. NSA is. I mean, is this just to keep? Is this bread and circuses? Anyone want to chime in on that?
Yeah, it's a distraction. It's a bunch of nonsense, and they don't want you thinking about a bunch of other things. There's been very little, if any, reporting on this dead body that was found on Obama's backyard in Martha's Vineyard. Yesterday, I saw a video of some naked woman standing in the middle of a freeway in San Francisco, literally shooting her revolver at cars that were passing by. Like, there's all this stuff going on and then we got UFOs over here. It's just like there's this constant need for shiny objects for us to look at. And it's not just the government, it's the media. The media wants us to look over here, look over here, look over here. So at the end of the day, it's not just about like a psyop to convince us that things are one way when they're actually another way, but it's the media just trying to survive and keep people interested in the news, and so there's a combination of things going on, but yeah, it's ultimately a distraction.
Yeah, and well, I mean, that leads into another big story of the week that people know about, but then you're just supposed to say, "Oh, that's normal." It's normal for a peak athlete at 18 to almost drop dead, to have a heart attack on the basketball. Bronny James had a heart attack. I mean, that's what he's a young guy that. I mean, we've heard about the heart conditions increasing for young people who took a certain shot at a certain time, but the media, they don't want to talk about it. So I thrown two red meat things out there. My other two guests, you could comment on either one real quick.
Let me chime in. So I am someone who has. So first of all, Bronny James didn't have a heart attack; he had cardiac arrest, there is a difference between cardiac arrest and a heart attack. I mean, a heart attack was when an artery clogs up, and cardiac arrest is more your heart is based off of these electrical palpitations, and so it just starts beating really fast or irregularly, and then boom, stops. And I've seen that happen. Back in 2012, I played basketball up at Utah State, and one of my teammates suffered cardiac arrest on the court during practice. And, it's something crazy to watch. But when that happened to him, he went to the hospital. Luckily, they revived him right on the court, started his heart back with one of those AEDs, pumped, and his heart started beating again. He went to the hospital, was in a coma for a couple of days, woke up. They put a device in his chest just to monitor him. He did a bunch of stress tests, a bunch of blood work, and they couldn't figure out why that happened to him. And that was kind of crazy. Something that they do say is there's this thing called commotio cordis. I don't know how you pronounce it. And which is like basically a big hit at the right time when your heart is beating.
Hamlin.
Yeah, that's what they say happened to DeMar Hamlin. I don't know if they even know. And I think cardiac arrest, when that happened to my buddy, it took me down a different type of rabbit hole back then that I didn't realize. And, he was going to these events where there's tons of people that are just normal, healthy people that do have cardiac arrest. Now, I myself, I am unvaxxed. I didn't get the clot shot. And so it makes me think, though, you see more heart conditions, you see more things happening. And maybe it's just making it easier to get something like a cardiac arrest, because we largely didn't know why people were getting it in the first place. Like it's just kind of random. Some people get it when they're playing a sport. There's some athletes that'll get it when they're just by themselves in their homes and they just drop dead. And so it is a weird, cardiac arrest is a weird thing that's been going on, and maybe there's a couple of different reasons why. Maybe it's because overall, like all vaccines in general, or maybe it's because athletes are getting stronger, faster, bigger, and they're putting more stress on their hearts than they've ever done before. I don't know, but I don't want to say that it's just the vaccine, because I saw this happen firsthand to one of my good friends way before this vaccine was around. But I'm not going to say that this shot, the vaccine, isn't causing that, because I imagine there's probably a lot of adverse effects going on right now.
Well, this is the thing. This is what RFK brings to the table. Why don't we discuss? We should be able to discuss these things. We should be able to discuss autism rates going up. Okay, we should be able to. You can't just be. He's crazy. He's crazy. He's crazy. What people would just say, you're crazy for saying. I mean, that's
well, it's like in COVID, right? Remember in COVID when if you tried to question anything, you were silenced or banned, right? Like, hey, maybe we shouldn't do lockdowns. Oh, this guy's this, or maybe we shouldn't use a vaccine that hasn't been tested. Oh, they've been building this for 20 years. Well, it seems like they just built it in 6 months, And so I think there's a lot of those things where we should at least be trying to have conversations about this, and going and looking up studies and trying to find numbers and trying to find causes of things. Because if these things are happening, shouldn't we look for a way to prevent them? Like, that is the overall thing. Hey, if Bronny James could have prevented cardiac arrest, well, wouldn't we want to know what caused his cardiac arrest so we could know how to prevent it and prevent it in other athletes? That's the whole idea, and not just silencing people.
So the one thing about him that's very interesting is, since he's such a huge prospect, he has had the best medical examinations in the world for years now. They've got the whole sheet on him. So he didn't have some weird abnormality they saw beforehand. His father obviously has very good genetics. Maybe it runs in his mother's side. I do not know. Ulrich also played basketball. I didn't know you played D1, Sean. I did. I'm in Salt Lake City.
Sean has a better career than mine. He went to go play overseas, but we actually played in schools. At least when I played college, his college was in our same conference, and they moved on at another place.
I didn't fully understand your athletic history, Sean. I thought part of it was hype. I didn't know. I don't know, man. I'm learning here, dude.
Sean needs to take a slight risk and play with me at the 3-on-3 at Pacific Bitcoin. I want you to make sure you got your knees all braced up and just see if you can be my ringer.
If they got a wood court out there, I might consider it. But if it's that court garbage, bro, I'm not trying to tear an Achilles like Q did.
Like a Q did, yeah. Let me chime in on both the aliens and Bronny. So what Sean was talking about is correlation. I was actually going to say that, yeah, there is a correlation between, and a combination of us being in the internet age. What we see is now we have this shot in our world now, and then there was evidence that it did affect our circulatory system. Now you see that whenever a circulatory system kind of thing happens, especially with people that look like they're in really good shape, then there's oh my gosh, what's going on? It was the vaccine. Well, you could point to DeMar Hamlin, you could point to Bronny James, but Reggie Lewis, who played for the Celtics in the early 90s, all-star caliber, he was supposed to take over when Larry Bird got too old, died from the same cardiac arrest situation. Hank Gathers, early 90s, Loyola Marymount, guy is averaging 30 points a game in college, was essentially the best college player in the nation, died as a sophomore, junior, cardiac arrest. So there is precedent. I will say that when you see the correlation between the shot and these heart conditions in famous people, the next time the government tries to infringe on our natural rights, which is our body, you might want to take a look at how the elites react, because even though they're going to tell LeBron, yeah, this has nothing to do with the vaccine, it's nothing to worry about, blah blah blah,
he's thinking it. And the next time they say, hey, we have this injection we want to put in your wrist so you can pay with your hand, Amazon, Palm, the elites are going to be like,
maybe not. And then we should be following, what do the elite people do? Are they going to cancel someone because, are they going to cancel a B-list actor because he won't buy into the mainstream program? Then we as Bitcoiners will pay attention to that. It's a sad thing that the normies who accept Worldcoin, they're just going to say, oh, they're crazy. And they'll go along with the program. But with time, with these correlations, with these government infringements, I think smart people will continue to adopt this principle of we need to be separate from state. We need to be self-sovereign. We need to be sovereign individuals. And everything that government does for us is not necessarily good. And real quick, Chris, and then I'll go on the UFO distraction. If UFOs are real, how does that change the government from stealing from us? So we just have bigger things to deal with than if there's a UFO hidden somewhere in Area 51. If the UFOs are fixing the monetary supply, I understand. But as far as I'm concerned, it's just another reason to point people away from the fact that the government is continually debasing our values. I'm sorry, Chris, go ahead.
Oh, no reason to apologize. I just think that it's a little optimistic, I think, to think that smart people are just going to be able to separate away and to do their own thing. Because if 80-90% of people buy into this stuff, which they have been, and they were during the past 3 years, we saw already, like, we can't forget the tyranny of the majority is very, very real, and if they buy into this AI stuff and this iris scanning stuff and all this biometric stuff and the CBDC stuff, the next time that this all goes down, and the only reason that the COVID passports didn't work the last time around is because the tech wasn't quite ready. They weren't quite there. They were using these paper cards in a lot of cities and they just couldn't figure it out. But now all of these entrepreneurs, all these, profit-seeking Silicon Valley companies are working on solving that problem right now for the next pandemic. They are working on it. They're working hard and they're trying to sell it to governments. So the next time a pandemic rolls along, they're going to be ready. They're going to already have our biometrics in some way. And we laugh at the iris scan, but we've all done fingerprints. We've all done, different types of biometrics with the government. We could face a situation where you miss that vax appointment, you have to get your iris scan, enter the supermarket, and you can't get in. Or you can't get into the emergency room because you missed your appointment. So then we're going to have to make some hard decisions if we don't have a parallel economy by then, which we probably won't, unfortunately, because that takes decades to build. So then we're going to have to look at each other and be like, how the hell am I going to feed my family? Yeah, sure, maybe I've got 10 Bitcoin sitting over here, but I can't do much with it because the exchange won't work with me anymore because I said this on social media. It's like we need to think through all of this from this adversarial point of view and think about how are we going to be able to survive the next pandemic when they get double crazy on us and they have all this additional tech that they're able to tyrannize us with. That's the kind of thinking I think we should employ.
But I agree with that. I think it won't be, in my opinion, I think if they try a pandemic again, I think it'll be a different form of tyranny that we're not ready for, that'll catch us off guard. And so I think we just have to keep considering the facts of, hey, are we going to give up our freedoms for convenience? And we have to keep thinking about that. Are we going to give up our privacy and our freedoms for convenience? Because the next thing that comes along probably won't be a pandemic. It'll be some other thing that's a big scare that if they can get enough momentum behind it, then that's what will be used against.
Climate lockdowns.
Yeah, it could be the climate. Exactly. It could be something like that. And so we just have to keep considering and keeping our eyes open for those things and trying to figure out how to build a Bitcoin economy, because that will be a free economy wherever you are. If you're living in a circular Bitcoin economy, then that will be where freedom will be.
We had a question before about government making laws. Under this scenario that you talk about, this is where being an American citizen is awesome, because we have 50 different states. And I truly believe after this nightmare of 2020, that there are certain states that already have certain laws in place that will allow people to not have to worry about some of the things that Chris said. whether it be Florida, Wyoming, wherever. So if you're in California, the answer is going to be straight up. You're going to have to move to Wyoming or Florida.
I'll be ready to move. I like the sunshine, but I'll be ready to move.
Well, that's the thing. Don't be a tree. Be ready at least. That's one of the solutions. That is one of the solutions to this. And by the way, speaking of moving, I know, Ulrich, you got to get out of here really soon. And you were about to segue into separation of money and state. It felt that at one point during the alien thing, I think. So talk about your monetary Declaration of Independence.
Yeah, sure. So I work on a few things in the space, primarily education. I'm an engineer by trade, but you can only do so much engineering in your life before you want to bang your head against the wall. So I like to learn and teach about the ethics and the economics around Bitcoin. So the Declaration of Monetary Independence would be over my this shoulder right here, and it's basically a standard describing the bad things about fiat, the good things about Bitcoin. We put it in a big giant banner, take it to conferences, let people sign it, turn it into like graffiti art. We've done it twice already. We're going to do it Pacific Bitcoin this upcoming year, hoping to do it Nashville in July of next year as well. On top of that, I also have my own personal website with all the podcasts and written publications that I put my signature on sirulrich.com, as well as pictures from past events. And just recently started a Substack that talks about the intersection of Christianity and Bitcoin, basically publishing my own articles and articles of others that have where there is a deep intrinsic ethical standard that comes from that faith and the parallel ethical standard of what it means to be a Bitcoiner. And so, just trying to find ways to collaborate and network with people while teaching people that don't know about Bitcoin or don't know about how intrinsic it is to your life already, and meeting people like you guys along the way has been edifying to me.
Well, I got to say, you are definitely in motion. We use that term around here. And it's everything, most of everything he talked about is linked to below. You can follow him on Twitter. The declaration is linked to below. Let's move to Big Shot Harris. I got to apologize again, dude. I usually know the full background of all the guests. I'm like the CIA and stuff. I did not fully understand your basketball skill at all. And it's amazing to have two D1 players on at the same. I should have known better. I should have known better. But you got a big. I think about you and partying, dude. So tell us about your party, man.
Thanks, man.
That I knew about. That's linked to below. So.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so we're doing, as the Meme Factory, we're putting on the halving party for 2024. It happens once every 4 years. This will be our first time really doing it and doing it big. And so we're really excited. We're the guys that did the laser eyes, obviously, at the Meme Factory. The whole reason behind it is in 2020 halving, what were we doing? We were watching Pomp crack open a beer on YouTube, and it was terrible. And so I was like, we got to have something where all the Bitcoiners meet up and celebrate the halving, because it's like the Olympics, or it's like the New Year. It's actually Bitcoin, right? It's what happens with Bitcoin's monetary policy. And how many people do you talk to about Bitcoin with? And then they say, oh, here's my opinion on Bitcoin, blah, blah, blah. And then you go, okay, well, what do you think about the halving? And then they go, the what? Right. And so if you don't know what the halving is, you don't know what Bitcoin is, because it's so ingrained. It's so important to Bitcoin's scarcity. And so it's something that we want to celebrate, and we're going to have a blast. I went down to El Salvador last summer, went up and down the whole coast, and found the best venue down there right on the beach. We already have sold almost 200 tickets. And so just go to BitcoinHalvingParty.com. That's Bitcoin Halving, HALVING, BitcoinHalvingParty.com. Get your tickets there. It'll be a 3-day event, April 3rd through the 5th. And so it's going to be so much fun in Bitcoin country. And a lot of people have wanted to go to El Salvador. They just haven't had a good enough excuse to go down, or they didn't have people that they were going to meet up with. And so we figured this is the time to do it. And then other than that, we just have our Meme Factory podcast that we do every Thursday as well on YouTube at 7:30. So that's what we got going on, and it's a big blast. So thanks, Adam, for having me on.
Okay, it is linked to below. I love you made a great debut, and you have a great point. They don't know what the halving is. I mean, a lot of people just don't care about scarcity, sadly. And they also, I mean, the same people are like, yeah, I keep all my Bitcoin in Coinbase. I mean, they don't care about third party. I mean, it's a big overlap there. There's a, but that's their choice. I mean, there's only so much screaming you can do about scarcity and controlling your private key. And Chris Black has been doing a lot of screaming about centralization and about do third parties really control some of these. What is really decentralized finance? And there's basically nothing that's decentralized finance, and people hate him for that. And they hate him for calling. So that's what Chris Black freaking does. But I mean, you tell us what you're up to, Chris.
I don't know, man. It's all bullshit. Oh, whoops. Yeah, man. It's crazy. It's actually more about uncovering where they're lying. It's about because I don't spend my time going around saying Coinbase is centralized. Everybody knows that. It's about looking at all the other crypto stuff that's going on and looking at where it's not so obvious, where there's trust involved, and when I was just talking about it this morning with there's a new bill in Congress that's being floated that would exempt any blockchain application from money transmitter laws if it's non-custodial. But then my question to them is it non-custodial if it's an Ethereum app and there's a multi-sig that a developer can use to upgrade the logic and potentially lose or drain all the funds? Like, have you guys really thought that through? And nobody answers. So it's like just trying to raise awareness on these things, because now we're in the phase where some of these scams could start getting almost protected by laws that we think are well-intentioned, but in the meantime, the blockchain association, all these VC driven organizations are out there with Coinbase money and A16Z money, and they're paying off politicians to do these favorable laws. So there's all this stuff going on. I have a new podcast that I launched. I've only launched 2 episodes so far, but they've been really awesome on a lot of these topics. Yesterday, I just put out my 2nd episode with Jameson Lopp, who's an original cypherpunk. Awesome conversation. It's called Chris Black Conversations, and you can find it on all podcast apps. And my Twitter is /Chris Black.
The Twitter is linked to below. I retweeted a little clip that you had there. You had the same concern that I have, that these BlackRock will do a BlackRock a Bitcoin fork and say it's the real Bitcoin eventually, and they're going to own a lot of they're going to have a lot of Bitcoin, and it'll put a lot of pressure on people. He was talking about that with you, how it's even written into the they get to decide which Bitcoin is the real Bitcoin and what to give out to their people. The thing is, don't mess with BlackRock people. Own the underlying so you can have the real Bitcoin, and they don't steal your real Bitcoin and say now you've got BlackRock Bitcoin that's approved by Elizabeth Warren. All right, this has been a
Black coin.
Hey, Ulrich, get on that one, man. Get on the Black coin.
Black coin. Let's go.
Let's do it, man. Black coin. I mean, that'll be marketing right there. Oh my God. All right, guys. Shabbat Shalom, everyone. Tomorrow's Friday. Have a great Shabbat. I'm Adam Meister, the BitcoinMeister. These guests were freaking awesome. They will all be back at some point soon. Hopefully, we'll do this on the regular. Tell me what you liked about it in the comments. DM me, follow me, pound that like button. I'm Adam Meister. See you guys pretty darn soon. I hope here. Well, let me get. Thank you very much, everyone. See you later, everybody. Ending the stream now. All right, we ended it. I think we ended it.